My guest today is author and scholar Dr. Ramachandra Guha. Ram joins us from Bengaluru in India, and I'm going to ask him what he thinks the future of globalism looks like in a post-COVID world.
For several years before the current pandemic, there had been a pushback against globalization and the sense that the world was getting interconnected, that this economic, cultural connectedness was good for everyone. Over the last 10 years, there's been a pushback through populist movements, through leaders saying we have to erect barriers. For example, the Brexit movement in England or Trump, a sense that maybe particularly richer countries, the middle class had been squeezed out, inequality had grown, and that was already changing before the pandemic, and now it's likely to change even more. And because of the fear of the virus coming in, more boundaries are going to be erected. Because what the pandemic will do, Adil, one of the things it's obviously doing, most evidently, is making travel so much more difficult. You can't just hop on a flight and go where you want. So tourism, exchange of ideas, exchange of people, all this will come down radically.
What are the most important forces or force that will shape the future of globalism?
The future of the world as a whole, including the future of globalism, which is what we're talking about, depends critically on the US presidential election. At least for 100 years, Adil, the most important democratic election in the world has been the US presidential election. Possibly the election of Franklin Roosevelt was critical because Roosevelt played a major role in taming the Great Depression and, of course, in building up military forces and entering the Second World War against the isolationist forces in his own country. So this is a critical election. Now, I don't have a vote, but if I did, I would not vote for Trump. And the reason really is that I think in a post-COVID world, though there will be increasing skepticism about globalization, you need multilateralism more than ever. You could say we maybe have been entering a multipolar world. Of course, the two major powers clearly are the US and China. The Americans may have thought in their hubris that after the end of the Cold War, they would be unchallenged. That was true for some time. But the Chinese have advanced very far economically, militarily, technologically, and maybe we're entering a kind of multipolar world with two major powers. So I think this is a very important election, not just for the US, but for the world. If Trump wins, apart from being isolationist, Trump is also incredibly unpredictable. I think Xi Jinping is not unpredictable. And one of the reasons could be that Xi Jinping does not express his views on Twitter. He keeps them to himself. Right. Xi Jinping clearly has a 10-year plan for himself and a 100-year plan for his country. That's how he's working. And to combat that, I think the world needs a truly stable person. So this US election is the most important exercise of the democratic franchise anywhere in the world, I would say, for the last 90 years at least. And that's why we are all watching it so closely.
You, of course, are a biographer of leaders, of leadership. Do you think there are other mass forces that are also defining the future of globalism?
That's a terrific question. Obviously, leaders are both made by society and reshape society and can be challenged and overthrown by society. And in many cases, there may be the popular movements you've talked about. But another autonomous actor that shapes history is technology. And I think that's the great insight of Karl Marx. In many ways, that's his greatest insight, that technology is an autonomous actor. The way the internet has shaped society, the way the aeroplane shaped society. So the question of what kind of cure will be found for COVID? Will we find a vaccine? Who will own the vaccine? Will they share the vaccine? I think now medical technology will play an autonomous role beyond what leaders can do.
When you look towards a future post-COVID, what is your best hope?
My best hope is, and we haven't talked about this, but both of us have been at different points in our life environmental scholars. So one of the pandemic has caused enormous economic, social, political dislocation and suffering, but it's led to less pollution and a less burden on the earth. So one best hope would be that we become more wise, more caring in our attitude towards nature and natural resources. And I think that may be forced upon us by the pandemic. The other more maybe utopian hope is a sense of transnational, transcultural human solidarity. The sense that we are all in this together. Now, because we all can be equally affected. Now, that's where the vaccine comes in. Now, I think it's very important that if a vaccine is discovered, that whoever discovers it has the generosity of spirit to share it with all of humanity.
And what would be your worst fear?
My worst fear would be that we lack the scientific and moral and institutional resources to overcome this pandemic and the virus wins.